All right, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Beth Revis has kind of spearheaded this project. Obviously, you guys know that we're looking at trying to stand up a drug court. So I'm going to start things off and just kind of give you an overview of some of the statistics of the drug uses, overdoses, things like that we're seeing across the state, in the region, and locally here. And then just to kind of educate any gaps in knowledge that you guys may have on that. And then Beth's gonna follow up and discuss how a drug court operates and what sort of an impact that it may have on our community. So.
Beth, can you move out?
All right, so fatal overdoses have been the leading cause of unnatural deaths in Virginia since 2013. We'll have a slide that you'll see in a bit. It's overtaken motor vehicle crashes and gun violence for the past several years. Fentanyl, which everybody's heard about at this point, I think, or its analogs have contributed to 71% of all the fatal overdoses in 2020. We've also seen an increase in some of the non-opioid drugs as well. There aren't a ton of fatal cocaine and methamphetamine overdoses, but they've increased dramatically as well. Kind of demographics throughout the state, our overdose victims tend to be white males between the ages of 25 and 35. The youngest fatal overdose from our region was 16 years old last year in 2021. Everybody recalls that. So the overall inmate expenditure for incarceration averages $143 a day. I think Russ keeps that number well under that at RSW, but that's kind of a state average. And the average expense for treatment is about $28 a day. So just so everybody understands, one of the things that we do now is the Safe Overdose Reporting Law. And again, 18.251.03, essentially it provides a shield against arrest and prosecution for certain people who seek or obtain overdose emergency medical attention. This allows people to call law enforcement, and when we respond, typically we will administer Narcan many times these days unless they've already done so. But then we cannot charge any of the people that are there with any drugs that they may have on their person. And while that's the intention of that law is to keep people feeling good about calling for help when they need it, it doesn't allow for any recourse that could potentially point that person into treatment, which is one of the things that is a negative about it. So just some of the state police data, total drug arrests, Commonwealth-wide, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. You see it trending down. Obviously COVID plays a part of that, but one of the safe reporting also caused that number to drop, as well as some of the other legislation that's come along. And it's kind of that storm of COVID, along with some of this legislation that's caused those arrests to go down. And the fact the arrests have gone down sounds good, but our overdoses have increased. So you can kind of see where we're at here. The fatal overdoses are up top. Some of this might be easier to see in your handouts, but you can see our top model here is fatal drug overdoses, with 2021 being the most current rate at cracking up over 2,500, and that's significantly higher than it has been over the past few years. So we're seeing a significant increase.
Is this Virginia?
This is Virginia,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
So fatal and non-fatal overdoses, obviously you can see some of them, there's been a steady rise of the fatal overdoses, even though that we've had Narcan, and has affected some of those numbers locally. Statewide, it still continues to climb. The non-fatal overdoses is where you actually see the effect of the Narcan. Our non-fatal overdoses have gone down significantly, and I believe that to be as a direct result of commercially available Narcan. Folks being able to reverse that, and fortunately it's been able to save quite a few lives. All right, so looking at our region, Again, this all comes from Virginia Department of Health, what the fatal overdoses look like. Front row of Warren County is in the orange. So 2016 we had 9, 2017 we had 14, as well as 2018. That number rose to 17 in 2019. 2020 we had 19, and then last year we had 11. Again, I think some of those numbers have come back down because of the Narcan. Again, you can see some of the other areas in the region, and it's sort of a hodgepodge, but you can see how the numbers have trended across the past several years, staying fairly consistent. Locally, just Warren County, so you can see the numbers here of the overdose deaths going across from 2016, 2020. We were up to 53, and then 34 in 2021, with 3 of those overdoses being in the county, and then 2022 so far we're at 7 in the town and in the task force region, with 2 in Warren County thus far.
Thank you. Cale,
Yes, ma'am.
if we're at 7, I'm just saying
That's-
7, right? And that's just January, February, I'm assuming, right?
That's task force region.
Gotcha.
That's the entire, that's our region.
Okay.
That's the Northwest region.
I was just thinking if you would times that by 6, you'd be at 42, which is higher
Right.
than last year.
Yeah.
I mean, just,
Yes, no, that's regional. That's not
Okay.
just Warren County.
yeah, but still higher than last year.
Correct, yeah. It's still trending upwards.
Yeah.
So overdose deaths, we've got them broken out here in the region, between male and female. Obviously, you can see that our male numbers are significantly higher than females. Again, we trend that male 25 to 35 demographic is what we've been seeing most of the overdoses. You can see it continues along. Same there. So victims under the age of 21, the overdose victims. In 2020, we had 20 total incidents, 2 deaths. There were 17 males, 6 females, and the average age was 18. 2021, we had 23 total overdose deaths, total overdose incidents for people under the age of 21. 2 of those resulted in deaths. 13 were males, 17 were females, so we actually had more females during last year with an average age of 19. And then thus far in 2022, we've had 3 overdose instances of people under the age of 21 in the region, with 1 death. 2 of those folks were males, 1 was female, and the average age was 17. So this is just kind of shooting at the data for folks underneath the age of 21. I know the drug committee is focused on youth, particularly, as well as all our citizens, but kind of focusing on youth. So we wanted to include this slide to kind of show where we were with the overdoses of folks under the age of 21.
Cale, what is the region? Where is that?
So it's Clark, Frederick, Warren, Shenandoah, Paige, Clark, yeah, those 5
So
those 5
Winchester,
jurisdictions.
or is Winchester?
Yep, Winchester's included Frederick.
Okay.
So the counties of Clark, Frederick, Warren, Paige, and Shenandoah.
Okay.
Yeah, the kind of the Northwest region. So, and this is kind of a map of our region, kind of showing where all these are occurring. We're over in here, obviously, Warren County. So 2021 totals, we had total suspected overdoses 284. 33 of them were suspected to be fatal overdoses, and Narcan was administered at 184 of those incidents. Now again, this is data that was gathered by Northwest Virginia Regional Drug Task Force and Warren County. You're going to see some different numbers with VDH. And we'll kind of go through that and explain some of it. Our 21 totals, we had 72 suspected overdoses, 9 fatal, and administered Narcan at 29 of those events. Front row. So again, regionally, 2022 task force, we had 20 suspected overdoses thus far this year, 6 of which occurred here in Front Royal Warren County. There have been 6 fatal overdose deaths in the region. We've had 1 here in Front Royal Warren County. They administered Narcan at 11 of those 20 regionally. We've had 4 Narcan administrations at the overdoses that we've had reported here. All right, so let's talk about incarceration versus the treatment costs. So RSW is doing a fantastic job of keeping our operating costs to a minimum per inmate at $67.31 per day, with a total expenditure per inmate being about $85.34. Paige County runs about $123 across the board. Northwest Regional over in Winchester, their operating cost per inmate day is $90.87 with total expenditures of roughly $97.83 per day. So the overall average for a total expenditure per inmate is about $143.29. So Northwest Regional Adult Drug Treatment Court calculated the average savings per day to be about $70 per inmate. It's based off the cost to incarcerate someone, and then our ADC, $97 a day, and the average cost for a client in drug court is about $27. So again, these prices will vary, especially nowadays. We all can agree with the way our economy's been lately. But so it's based on volume, how many folks we've got to employ to keep the treatment going, and Medicaid and those types of things. All of those things that Beth's actually going to speak to you a little bit further about. So VDH. This is the emergency room visits. I feel like this is probably going to be an important slide to share with Valley Health when we have our meeting with them tomorrow. So across the state, roughly 18,542 overdose visits for all drugs in 2020. Opioids, in particular, 30,353 overdose visits, and heroin, of course, is the same. They're the same numbers. We actually have the numbers here for Warren County, and we'll show the overdose visits at our ER being 158 in 2020, 114 in 2021, and so far we've had 11 overdose visits at our hospital. And again, we're not learning about all these because we only get called to the ones that law enforcement response, where we actually respond to them. So there are quite a few of these numbers that you're going to see with VDH. They're going to be different from our task force numbers because of the non-law enforcement that's doing the reporting. Go back. I thought I could go back. So anyway, some of the stats that you see in there, the VDH information varies widely, and we were really trying to figure out why, in fact, that was. Of course, we know that there's many people that are going to the hospital for overdoses, and law enforcement's just not involved. So our number is going to be significantly lower because of that. But depending on where you look on VDH's website and who you talk to, even their numbers fluctuate wildly, and we're trying to nail down why that is. We got I was working with the Washington-Baltimore HIDA analyst to put a lot of this information together, and some of the numbers from VDH didn't match the numbers that we were getting in the spreadsheet from the state epidemiologist, who also works for VDH, so I'm not really sure why they're two very different numbers, but some of them were pretty significantly different. And a lot of that comes down to, I guess they were analyzing essentially death certificates, and I'm not sure whether some of the other information was maybe coming from the EDs, but so we don't know exactly how many folks, person say elderly, 85 years old, is found, it's an unattended death, and they go to the medical examiner and they died because they died of old age. But if they've got an opioid on board because of a bad knee or a bad hip, how are those numbers getting charted? So we're still trying to figure out with the state what some of these numbers that they're providing look like. Because again, even from the same source, they're wildly different. But what we can tell you is the numbers that we provided, the task force HIDA numbers, are law enforcement, what we actually respond to and go out on. So we know that those overdoses occurred, and we, obviously we know when they're fatal and which ones are not. So those numbers present at least an accurate picture as far as law enforcement involvement. Again, you'll have numerous overdoses that go unreported every day, and folks don't go to the hospital because they've got their own Narcan. Again, the commercially available Narcan has skewed some of these numbers, as well as the safe reporting, and folks will just go to the hospital. So that's kind of a nutshell of what our drug problem looks like. Unfortunately, it's trending up. The deaths are trending up. So we're really trying to figure out what the best course of action to move forward is. And Winchester has seen pretty significant results with their drug court thus far. They've had a pretty successful run at it. Their numbers seem to be above the state average for recidivism. So we're looking at trying to mirror what they're doing and move forward in that direction. So maybe yes, sir.
Is the numbers that are where we got drug overdoses, we've got deaths, are the numbers from an age point of view, are they trending down?
Well,
are they getting closer to the younger people?
Well, we're still looking at, again, the vast majority are 25 to 35,
right.
Typically white males. And again, I pointed out the under 21 numbers that we have, and any number is alarmingly high, right? But that's unfortunately that's what we're dealing with.
Okay.
So it tends towards the younger side. We're not seeing a whole lot in the 55 to 65 range, if that's what you're asking.
That's good. No,
that's right.
No.
Do you track how many of the non-fatals are repeat overdoses?
Yes. Yeah, we do keep track of those, and I can get that information for you if you like it. But yeah, we've had more than one that we return to. So
I'm aware that some elements of heroin use have been sort of decriminalized, like you were describing. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but you arrive on an overdose scene, you can't arrest people. Mm-hmm. You can administer Narcan. Could you just go into a little bit more detail? What are the types of things that you can arrest somebody for heroin?
So if there are other, even if there are other drugs present, mm-hmm. we cannot arrest based on that. But if there is evidence of other crimes, occasionally you'll come across one where, say, it's a family situation and you've got parents that are overdosed and the children may not be in a safe environment at that point, unsupervised. So there may be other charges that occur based upon those types of things sometimes. But I mean, essentially with the way the safe reporting works, if you overdose mm-hmm. and your wife calls 911 and we arrive and we bring you back to life and you got a 8-ball of meth in your pocket, I can take it from you because it's illegal by its nature, but I can't charge you with that.
Well, if I could just ask a follow-up, but if I'm going 10 miles over the speed limit, you arrest me, you see something weird in my car, you do a search and you find that 8-ball, you can arrest me. But if it's instead of an 8-ball, it's just heroin, you mm-hmm. can arrest me. No. So it's just in the overdose
drugs.
Situation.
Correct.
All
yes.
Right, thank you.
This is strictly to keep people feeling safe about calling for assistance when they need it, okay. and that's the intention of the legislation.
Gotcha. Understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So these stats that we saw are the ones where law enforcement has been called, right?
The ones that we were talking about, the
Right.
local and regional ones, yes.
Yes. Clarify for me, so if if an ambulance, they call 911 and
Mhm.
somebody shows up there, do you all automatically show up there or no?
No, not necessarily.
So-
Typically, if it's an overdose call, we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just saying, because I thought I got that information
So-
from somebody that they come and not necessarily does law enforcement have to come. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that these numbers may not totally reflect everything, because if they're getting called,
No.
if the fire and rescue shows up
Right.
and you all aren't there and you don't have any need to report it, I don't know that it gets reported, is what I'm asking.
Yes, like I said, the numbers that we can
Mhm.
verify are only the
Right.
ones that law enforcement
Right.
is involved in.
Right,
Because you've still got people that maybe they don't call it in as an overdose.
Right.
It's a cardiac event.
right, right,
And perhaps there's an overdose that's occurred,
right.
but that's not readily apparent until squad's on the scene. They package a person, bring them back with Narcan, and
Right.
the law enforcement's not coming out after the fact
Right.
typically.
So
But
I'm inferring, and maybe I'm taking a little bit of license here, but I'm inferring that these numbers could actually be higher because.
100%.
Right,
Yeah, the
right.
numbers that you're seeing are
Yeah,
low
that's
because
what, yeah.
yes,
Gotcha.
commercially available Narcan. A lot of folks are overdosing,
Right.
utilizing the Narcan, and not ever calling anybody because they're
Right.
safe at that point. So you see that quite a bit. So yeah, these numbers are certainly low. Even the state numbers are going to be low because they're only reporting
Right.
what shows up at the ER and what comes through in a medical examiner's report.
Right,
So yeah, these numbers
So
are
this is a
low
lot.
across the state,
yeah.
and there's no real way to quantify a lot of that. I mean,
I'm not suggesting that I think that the numbers are low, I'm appalled at these numbers, but what scares me is that this really isn't the whole
mm-mm.
tale of the story, is what I'm
No.
trying to say. Right, no, that's what I'm,
Yeah,
and, yeah,
no, certainly, yeah. Those numbers are only when law enforcement and the medical community is involved, because there's plenty of these that occur where they're not. Again, with the commercially available Narcan, folks are overdosing, they're not calling anybody. So, any other questions? All right, well, with that, I'll turn it over to Beth to explain a little more about drug court and how it works.
Thanks, Gil.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, just for those who don't know who I am, I used to be the Director of Social Services. I retired 3 years ago. Seems like more, but that's all it was, I think. And so I came back as interim director when Deanna Cheatham went to Williamsburg, and then I stayed to help. I come back 1 week a month because I don't live here anymore. I live in Portsmouth, Virginia. And I drive back up here 1 week a month to work on this initiative and try to get this going. So that's been my role. I had 47 years in social service. And I didn't really, we had incidences of course, child welfare situations where DSS was involved, but not until I got into this and started doing the research, and I'm by no means an expert, but I know a lot more than I knew a year ago, because I've kind of immersed myself in everything that has to do with substance misuse and the disease of addiction, and it's so much worse than I would have ever known, even having my job as long as I did. So I was surprised. Wait a minute. Log in again.
No, I was trying to say. You don't move it. Go with this one.
Okay. So when most of us knew anything about drug addiction, we didn't know very much because there wasn't any research. There wasn't any brain research going on. People didn't know and couldn't tell what drugs did to people and their brain. But now we've probably had about 25 years of good solid research, and we do know what addiction does to a person. It changes their brain. Okay, come on. Did you break it, Kale?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Point it to the, maybe point it to the computer. Maybe that'll help. No?
Well,
No?
Kale was pointing
It's up there, yeah, up there.
Right there.
There's something different on your computer than's on that.
She has to put the full screen.
I said,
Full screen up there on the bottom.
Or present, if it's a PowerPoint, you have to present it.
Well, most of you have it in front of you, so I'll just keep going. Technology, to heck with it. Okay. What most of us learned was just that we thought people that were addicted to substances were weak-willed, morally bankrupt. You know, those other people. It wasn't people we knew. It certainly wasn't people that we cared about, but that has changed. Addiction is a disease. It is a disease that changes a person's brain, its neural pathways. It creates a craving that is almost impossible to ignore. It makes drugs more important than your life, than eating, than sex, just about any human need you can think of. This disease overtakes your pleasure centers, your reward centers, and it creates a need that most of us can't even comprehend. So to just dismiss that as other people is no longer valid. And now that the market or our country has been flooded with painkillers, OxyContin, and those kind of drugs, that is what you're seeing. People are taking those drugs. A lot of them were prescribed those drugs initially by their doctor. The pharmaceutical company told the doctors it wasn't addictive, and that when people said they needed more, the drug company told them, that's okay, we don't want people to be in pain. And so they prescribed more and more, especially to poor communities, especially in areas where people had a lot of work-related injuries and were poor and didn't have a more sophisticated understanding of addiction or knew anything about, they just wanted the pain to go away. And so they were trapped in this cycle of addiction that was created by a marketing campaign. And so when you can't get the OxyContin anymore, the next best thing is heroin. It's cheaper and more available. But there were so many pills out there. I mean, I think a person I talked to the other day said they had 100 OxyContin tablets in their medicine cabinet just given to him because of dental procedures that he'd had. He has never taken one, but he has a medicine cabinet full of them. They overprescribed it, you know, for any kind of pain. And so until it became evident that people's lives are being destroyed by this drug. Compared to other kind of lifestyle-related diseases like obesity, it's really no different. We don't look down on people who have type 2 diabetes or strokes or any kind of disease that they encountered because they smoke cigarettes. So we shouldn't really think about addiction any differently than we think about those diseases, because it is something that is classified in the medical community. The DSM-5 says it is a disease. This is a statistic that I wish I had never seen. Warren County ranks 5th in the Commonwealth in fatal overdoses per capita. That was shocking to me. Even as much work as we've done on substance abuse in this area, I had no idea that it was that bad. 65% of all inmates have a substance use disorder. $81 billion is what we spend every year on incarceration. And the societal costs of loss of income, damage to families, 3 times the direct costs, it's a $1.2 trillion. So it's costing our country, and it's costing Warren County. Let's see if I can make this go.
There you go.
All right. 74%, according to BJA, which is the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 74% of inmates have a substance use disorder. So we are consistently putting people with this disease in prison. Treatment courts work. They are the single most effective intervention in our nation's history, changing lives and keeping people from using substances and getting the kind of treatment that they need. The Drug Prevention Committee started about a year ago, and the first thing we had to do was educate ourselves about substance use because we all had our own misconceptions. So we started educating ourselves, then we tried to get the data, which is not easy to get and not easy to explain once you get it. We looked at what other localities had done. We looked at the services that we currently have in this community. We investigated the drug court, as drug treatment court as something that was a possible way to combat this epidemic that we have in our community. We certainly wanted to bring more resources to Warren County for people that were suffering from addiction. We also wanted to remove the stigma so that people felt comfortable seeking the treatment that they need. Most everybody on the Board of Supervisors has probably had a phone call from someone who said, my child, my sister, my mother, my father, someone in their family needs help, where can I get it? And so we know that there is more services needed in our community than we currently have. And Tim May from the Community Services Board was just telling us it's very hard to attract and keep qualified staff to do this kind of treatment. They're constantly recruiting for more people to do this kind of work. It's not easy to find. The drug court provides a structure for people that usually have been living in chaos. It requires supervision. You have specific curfews, you have rules, you have drug tests, you have home visits, you have work visits. They know where you are 24/7 just about, especially in the beginning of the program. People, there's programs that they can download on your phone, and your probation officer can know where you are any given time because they can track it. The rules are very specific, very concrete. Your consequences are known. You know what the rules are. You know what you have to do. Not only does the drug court treat the addiction, but they also treat a lot of underlying causes for addiction, like other mental illnesses or trauma that the person has been exposed to in their life. A lot of the reasons why they may have become addicted in the first place. So it's a very holistic program, and they're constantly evolving the program, adding services when they see what people need. Because every person is different. Every person may need a different kind of treatment, more treatment, less treatment. So they tailor that kind of treatment to the individual. The judge, the Commonwealth attorney, the defense attorneys, they're all part of this program because it is a court program. It is in lieu of punishment. Our court would be a post-adjudication court, which means it's someone who's been found guilty. So they are facing some kind of a jail or prison sentence. So they volunteer for this, but not everybody who volunteers is eligible. You can't be in the drug court if you're a violent offender in the last 10 years. So if you've been convicted of a violent crime, you're not eligible for drug court. The Commonwealth's attorney does that kind of investigation and determines if someone's eligible for the drug court. And then they have a clinical assessment because people that come into the drug court have to have a serious addiction problem. It's not for first-time users. It's not for people who have an occasional use of drugs. It's for people that have addiction disease. The approach is a bit like a carrot and a stick. And that works because when people are addicted, they need a lot of motivation to do better. So when when their every move is monitored, when they have a curfew, when the officers can stop by any time and check out whether they're home or whether they're at work or whether they say they are, they have often 3 or 4 therapeutic treatment interventions in a week. So they have intensive outpatient therapy. Sometimes they have medically assisted therapies where they take medications that help with the craving and help them, not being such, as they call, dope sick, needing those drugs, physically needing those drugs. Some of the drugs block the pleasurable sensations from drugs. Some of them are injectable, some of them are taken by mouth. They put in safeguards so people can't sell them or overuse them or overdose on those drugs. The national average completion rate is 60%, which is almost an unheard of statistic in any kind of treatment for substance uses. I don't know that our area drug treatment courts are that successful, but there's also different measures of success. Are we looking at recidivism? Are we looking at using again? So there's a lot of ways that you can look at it. So when you're reading the data, you need to pay attention to what they're measuring. Is somebody recommitted a criminal offense, or is somebody still drug-free? So there's lots of statistics out there. For every dollar invested, the taxpayer can expect $27 in return on their investment. Participation is voluntary. Someone is found guilty, and the prosecutor and the defense attorney come up with an agreement about what's going to happen. They can go to drug court, they can serve their sentence. If they successfully complete drug court, then they will not have to spend time in jail. If they fail out of drug court, then that's usually part of the agreement, how much time of their sentence they have to serve, and it's usually most of it, if not all of it. There's a National Association of Drug Court Professionals. This is an organization that spent 25 years developing protocols and best practices for these drug courts. There are drug courts all over the United States. They have done studies on addiction, pharmacology, behavioral health, criminal justice, and they have come up with a set of standard best practices. When you're in the drug court, they work with you on education, employment, housing, financial stability. They promote family reunification. They reduce foster care placements and increase the rate of mothers that give birth to substance-exposed infants. I got this figure here from my department. 37% of the 652 Child Protective Service calls, or that translates to 240 families in Warren County, had a substance misuse component in that complaint. In Warren County, 3 children that come into foster care can cost anywhere from $100,000 to $350,000 per year for care. The national standards deal with things like who's the best target population to have in your court? Who do you let into your court? Who's going to get the most benefit from your court? And they have best practices and training around that. They want to make sure that there's equity and inclusion. We don't want people who just have the best high-priced lawyer. The roles and responsibilities of the judge in the drug court are absolutely paramount to the drug court's success. The drug court judge meets with people on a weekly basis, and then as they progress through the program, maybe every other week and then sometimes once a month as the program goes on, and they do well. But normally in a courtroom, the judge never talks to the people, they talk to the lawyers. In this situation, the judge talks to the people, finds out how they're doing, wants to know how they are. What successes have you had? What was a challenge this week? they have a meeting right before the court docket where the whole team gets together and talks about how the person is doing. So you've got your drug court coordinator, your law enforcement officers, your treatment people, the lawyers, the Commonwealth's attorney and the defense attorney and the judge all meet and talk about the progress the person has had. The drug court coordinator is the person that kind of pulls all the information together and makes a presentation to the judge. So they make a decision about what's going to happen when the person actually comes into court. But the participant has an opportunity to talk to the judge about what's been going on in their lives and whether or not what are their struggles, what have they done well. And it's a very different relationship than you have in a normal courtroom. It's also a very different relationship they have with law enforcement. This is probably the first time law enforcement has been in their lives that it was a positive experience, that it was somebody that cared about them and wanted them to do well and looked out for their welfare. They have incentives, sanctions, and therapeutic adjustments. And we talked a lot today in our meeting about people that use after they've come into the drug court program. Well, that doesn't automatically mean they're just going to go straight to jail. They look at that person and see, do we need to adjust their treatment? What are we doing that what could we be doing for them more? What's another approach? What's working with their treatment? What's not? How can we help them? The program also provides incentives, little gifts to celebrate their victories, and sanctions. You know, maybe they'll move their curfew up if they're not doing what they're supposed to, if they're going places they're not supposed to. So it's a constantly moving thing to adjust to the person's needs. They get intensive substance treatment. And then they get complementary treatment and services for, like I said, education, work, other trauma they've experienced, other mental health issues that they have. They are constantly tested for drug and alcohol use. No substances allowed. So maybe your problem was heroin, but you're not going to be able to drink while you're a participant either. So you can't substitute one addiction for another. So they're drug tested sometimes as much as 3 times a week on a random basis. And so that continues throughout their time in the drug court. It's a multidisciplinary team. So you have all these people in the room working together to try to make this person a success. And the drug court itself has a monitoring and evaluation criteria so that they look at themselves, look at what they're doing, and see if they're making a difference in the person's lives. And they take that feedback and try to make the program better. The drug court dockets primarily target nonviolent offenders, and in Virginia, that is in code. Every drug court is not the same. The locality has some latitude in what happens in their drug court, but they all adhere to the best practices as set up by the state of Virginia and the National Association. When you read literature about drug courts, they often use the term high risk, high need, and that sometimes makes people very uncomfortable, it scares them. What do you mean high risk? High risk means they're at risk of reoffending. They've been in and out of jail and the courts over and over and over. They're frequent flyers. That means they're at risk of committing another crime. High need means that they have a serious substance abuse disease that needs to be treated. So those are the people that the data and the research shows are the people that actually benefit from this intensive kind of program. 18.2254.1 is the Drug Court Treatment Act, and that's in the Code of Virginia, and that spells out the requirements for the drug court. The docket is provided intensive treatment for services for at least a year. And if the programs that you hear about a lot of times are 30-day programs, detox programs, 90-day programs, well, that barely scratches the surface when somebody has a substance use disorder. So we're talking about a year to 2 years. It gives the treatment providers time to work with a person on all aspects of why they have this disease and how they can turn their life around. Oftentimes, successful completion of the treatment can result in total dismissal of the charges, reduced or set aside sentences, lesser penalties, or a combination of both. It depends on what the court decides. You have to form an advisory committee when you are seeking to form a drug court, and they decide what the policies are, but they still have to follow the Code of Virginia. The multidisciplinary approach is important because no one single entity can fix this problem. Law enforcement can't arrest enough people to make a difference in this problem. The Community Services Board can't give enough services to be the only one who's trying to work on this program. It is such a pervasive problem and such a serious problem and such an intractable problem that you need a group of people working together to kind of address all aspects of a person's life. There's 61 drug treatment courts currently operating in the state of Virginia. All our surrounding localities either have a drug court or are working on getting a drug court. There's a well-established drug court in Winchester, Frederick. Clark. It's been in operation about 5 years. Paige County just started their court. Shenandoah is looking at it as a strategy to help their folks, and we are. So these are the people that are on the team. The judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney or public defender, the coordinator, the probation officer, because all of these people are on probation. The treatment professionals, which is Northwestern Community Services Board, and we'll have a member from both the Sheriff's Department and one from the Police Department on our team. You have to be approved by the Supreme Court of Virginia. You can't just decide you're going to be a drug court and start it. You have to fill out an application. It's 47 pages long, by the way. And you have to know exactly how you're going to run your court. All the data, all the procedures have to be in place. Your people have to be trained. All of that has to happen before you can be accepted to actually start a docket. All aspects of the participant's life are monitored. Where they live, where they work, who they associate with, what time they go to bed, maybe not what time they get up, but definitely they have a curfew. Participants are held accountable with the random and frequent drug screens, curfews, and check-ins. Each drug court operates independently. We were talking today, Paige's court is a little bit different than Winchester's court. Our court will probably follow a little more closely to the model in Winchester, but not necessarily exactly. The policies and procedures are set in place by the local drug treatment advisory committee, and that is the judge. This is in code. These people have to be part of the advisory committee. The judge, the Commonwealth's attorney, the clerk of the court, public defender's office, someone from social services, probation, law enforcement, treatment, the drug court administrator, and the county administrator and town manager. So because we're county and town together, then we would have representatives from both the sheriff's office and the police department and the county administrator and the town manager. Our immediate need is to hire a drug court coordinator. Salary and benefits would be about $65,000, hoping that the cost can be shared between the county, the town, and possibly Valley Health. We're working on Valley Health to become a partner with us in this funding. They need to begin working on convening the advisory committee to start working on our court policies and procedures, to start the application process, to begin the training for themselves and arranging the training for other team members when they're identified, to apply for grants, for funding, and to develop relationships with the partner agencies and develop community resources. Implementation. It sounds like it's a really slow implementation, but that's what it needs to be, because being a multidisciplinary team and dealing with a really difficult population, you need a lot of training. You need your team to gel. You need to start working together as a team. So we projected in the first year we'd serve 5 to 6 participants. In the second year, 10 to 20. In the third year, 25 to 30, based on the need in our community. The coordinator's salary with benefits is about $65,000. Training and conferences, I put in $2,000, but it's kind of a guess because I haven't been able to find out any real data on that. But I know initially the training expense will be higher because everybody on the team has to be trained. And as we get maturity on our team, that number will go down. Drug screenings, $6,000. We do have some funding already promised from HIDA
Yeah,
for
first couple years.
drug testing kits, but those are the ones that the law enforcement uses when they go out on curfew checks and so forth. We still have to have the laboratory checks,
Right.
because it still is a court and you still have to have evidence that meets the test for evidence in court.
I've got a little birdie in the ear of one of the HIDA folks, because I know the lab tech over at in Winchester's, Winchester Frederick's court, is also funded by HIDA, so we're working on that as well.
Okay. The drug court coordinator will need a cell phone because that's the way they keep in touch with one another on the team and what's going on with the participants. What we need to pay for the treatment case manager. Some of that can be billed to Medicaid. Some of it will have to be paid for. When they expanded Medicaid, that kind of changed the game, so a lot of the cost for treatment and case management is borne by Medicaid. The Director of Social Services promised me a 24-hour turnaround for Medicaid and food stamps from the time we put them in the drug court and they get out of jail until they have the benefits and are found eligible. Of course, things like rent and utilities could be an in-kind contribution from the local government. That's yet to be decided. It's a little early to know about that. And I just plugged in office supplies at around $1,000. Some of those are just guesses. Some of those are based on the Winchester, what's going on in Winchester. So the year we implement, with about 5 to 6 participants, we're looking at $124,600 as a possible. And I'm sure I've left something off, but that's kind of just a bare bones. Yes, ma'am.
Coordinator, is that fully burdened? That includes
Yes. Yes,
all
that's
of
a
the
loaded
burden?
rate.
Okay, and that's a full-time person?
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't see the acronym for HIDA. Who was that?
High intensity drug trafficking area. It's an arm of the DEA, and Warren has been designated as a HIDA locality. So we received some funding from them for drug enforcement as well as education prevention.
There's also money available from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. They have a grant system and they provide money. The Supreme Court of Virginia also provides money to drug courts for their operation. Yes, ma'am.
Can you go back to the first slide?
Sure. Okay. I think I can't, yeah. Here you go. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain to me a little bit more about rent and utilities? You were saying it could be in kind, depends if the county wants to do it or something, so can you explain to me?
You know, if there's a piece of property that the county has and they want to allow us to use that space.
For what? For the court?
Okay, the drug court coordinator needs to have an office where she sees people and a place to meet, for the team to meet. So it's not a big space, but it's something that the drug court team has to have as a location for the drug court coordinator to work out of.
Where they would have those that are in the drug court, I don't know, the students.
Participants.
Okay, I was trying to think of how to say that. I was
Yeah.
thinking clients, but that's not really the same thing.
Yeah.
So a place where they could come,
For a
maybe get
meeting.
their of the treatment case manager, stuff like that.
Probably
or
testing, screening.
Where they be tested.
Sometimes
screened.
testing and screening is done at the courthouse, sometimes at the office. The Community Service Boards provides their services at their location on Kreiser Road.
Okay, gotcha.
But the drug court coordinator needs an office, just like
Gotcha.
everybody else does.
Yeah.
A place to sit with a computer, a place to put in their data, that sort of thing. Did I answer your question? Oh, okay.
But the participants would also come to that office, so it has to be a place where, large enough to have.
Basically, a small office space, a bathroom, and maybe a small conference room, so when the team gets together to discuss cases
Gotcha.
and, what they're doing.
And the team is that list of functions that you showed in the other.
Yeah.
That includes the sheriff and the
the two law
The
enforcement.
attorneys and.
Well, the attorneys usually have their own offices. So the Commonwealth's attorney already has an office. The public defender already has an office. You're talking about when they have a team meeting, they would come to that
So then
office.
who's in the team?
The team is the law enforcement,
Okay.
the case manager for the Community Services Board, the drug court coordinator who keeps all the records, enters everything into the state database that's required, and the probation officer. So those are the people that interact with the participants on a daily basis. The judge, the Commonwealth attorney, and the attorneys come together in the meeting before the docket. Anything else?
So the 124K is for the first year, which is 5 to 6.
Yes, ma'am.
So the second year, of course, that's going to increase.
Okay, well, the coordinator's salary would remain static. Training and conferences could change once we get the staff trained. Drug screening will go up. It's about $1,000 per participant. So that if we have 10 participants, we'd have.
So if you have 10, so you'd add 10,000 to the 124K or 20, the numbers.
And that covers the full year
Mhm.
of testing.
Yeah. And the cell phone probably the same. Treatment case manager salary would remain the same. And the office supplies. So really your floating costs are your drug screening per participant, your participant cost.
Question.
Yes.
Participant goes through this, graduates,
Mhm.
does well for, say, 3 or 4 years, and then falls off and gets back in the pattern. Are they eligible to go through drug court again or not?
I don't think so.
It depends on what the court would decide up front, but I do know courts that do allow that.
These are the things I want you to remember. Who is in the drug court? Individuals who have a serious substance use disorder. Individuals who are likely to reoffend. Persons who failed other attempts to get sober. Persons who want to change. And people that live all around us now. Who it is not serious drug dealers. It is not first-time offenders. Unless there could be a situation where they could be first-time offenders because maybe they have a serious addiction problem, but they've never been arrested. They kind of flew under the radar, but they have a serious problem. But it would have to be a fairly significant charge that would bring them to circuit court. We don't serve people who don't want to change. We don't serve violent criminals, and we will not be serving people that don't live in Warren County. It will not attract criminals to our area. Yes.
You had mentioned that ours would mirror more of Winchester, Frederick County versus Paige, and Paige had just unrolled theirs. Can you give me a little bit of insight on the difference between Frederick and Paige and why we would mirror more Frederick County versus Paige County?
I mean, I can only speak to the treatment piece, and I mean, we have worked with Winchester for a while, so we have a lot going on there. We have more staff there, they have more resources there, so we're able to do probably more treatment-wise compared to Paige. Really, I mean, I think, Beth, you've talked about like working closely with some of the people that are connected to Winchester, so that's probably part of the reason it'll mirror that. But I mean, the courts themselves are kind of different, but I can't really speak to that.
You know, the judge's personality, there's differences
Right, I
there,
understand
that kind of
Can
thing.
anybody speak to the difference between the treatment and participation with what Paige is doing versus Frederick? It seems like it might be vastly different.
Well, because Winchester has 5 years and
Correct.
30 participants.
I understand.
So Paige has probably 5 to 10. So you wouldn't have the volume of services and maybe some of the variety, but then, you know, as you determine people's needs, you bring in more services, different kinds of services.
The treatment will be the same. The modalities, our philosophy, it's just when you're starting drug court, you're not able you don't have enough participants to maybe
Do we
offer
know if
aftercare.
Paige is using Frederick as a mirror?
Yeah, we started with drug court in Winchester, so we implemented the things we were doing in Winchester and Paige. It's not exactly the same because, it's just different, things are a little different at times. But as far as, the types of groups we're running, the individual therapy, it's very much the same.
So I think the point I was making is if there was a concern in the community about something, about the drug court, there is some leeway in the rules and regulations and procedures that we put in place as long as we stay within evidence-based practice and best practice.
I know this is kind of hard to answer, but in regards to who it is not, I see violent criminals up there, and I know a lot of drug-related crimes that have violent criminals who are charged but not convicted. So can it be taken into consideration that they were charged but not convicted on violent crimes?
Well, the thing is, the screening process kind of allows for that kind of discretion because we talked about it earlier, that's where law enforcement's knowledge of the community comes into play. So they could know about someone who hasn't actually been convicted of something but is a serious criminal.
Right.
And so they could speak up and say that person's not appropriate for drug court. And that would be taken into account in the decision about whether they could participate. So there's lots of safeguards to try to make sure that the right people get into the drug court.
So
Yes.
what's the criteria for the who it is? I mean, will the judge make that decision, or is a committee going to look at someone and then decide? And if that's true, then is there a criteria of how they evaluate people?
The first step is to see what their criminal history is, so the Commonwealth's attorney does that screening, and so they know. Then the next screening, I guess, would be the police knowledge of that person if there was something that the drug court would exclude them from drug court participation. The next screening is for a serious serious addiction disease, so that the Northwestern does that screening.
So to
Okay,
echo,
so if you get, I'm sorry, Ann.
it's okay. Just to piggyback off of that, the advisory committee basically and essentially only comes into effect to create the advisory committee is initially only in the beginning to create basically within the state code what we're going to use.
Now, they're a continuous committee that looks at how the court's performing.
So does the advisory committee have any say over who is able to participate?
Well, when they make their policies and procedures, they could put in.
But not outside of the initial policies and procedures.
Right.
So you have a committee that does this evaluation, and then they go to
The Commonwealth
judge?
attorney, does the evaluation, then they're screened for a serious substance use
All
disorder.
right. So is that before they get sentenced or after?
The evaluations are done, then the attorneys get together, the Commonwealth's attorney and their defense attorney, and if they're eligible to go into drug court, they have to sign papers saying that they'll agree to the regulations of the drug court. And there's usually something in that agreement, from what I understand, that what'll happen if they fail in drug court. Will they, fill the whole sentence? So maybe they've been in drug court for 18 months, and for some reason they fall completely out of the program and have to be sanctioned. I don't know that they'd have to serve their entire sentence. The judge may take into consideration they've done well for a year and shorten their sentence time, or he could make them serve their whole sentence. But all those things are usually in the plea agreement.
So then it sounds like they were found guilty.
Yes.
And
Yes.
at that point, the Commonwealth has already determined prior to that sentence that this person is probably could be eligible for drug court. And then that's when the two attorneys and the judge would consider and ask them, are you willing to go through this program? Okay, so
They
that
still
makes
have to be
sense.
screened to be appropriate for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Commonwealth attorney basically has an idea before that sentencing of what's on his docket that could go to,
Yes.
okay, that makes sense of where you're going there.
In surrounding drug treatment courts, like Frederick County, let's say, if there is a repeat offender / participant, essentially, is there any financial burden to them for failing out of the program or becoming a repeat offender? I have a lot of questions around the funding aspect of it.
Okay, so a repeat offender prior to entering the drug court?
No, if you said that people are eligible for entering the drug court multiple times, the same person.
Well, that's not normal.
Right, but you said it's possible.
It's possible, yeah. So the expenses of the drug court, as far as I know, it's grant funding and locality funding, so that.
Yeah, it's only 25% typically locality match, I saw. So I'm just wondering if somebody is granted participation into this program for a year, let's say, and they fail the second month in, is there any financial responsibility on that individual for testing or anything otherwise?
Typically, the programs have a fee that they have to pay. I think it's normally around like $1,000.
Just
that they
initially
have
up
to-
front?
Throughout the program in order to complete. So normally each phase has a checkpoint of how much money they have to pay before they can advance through the program. So they don't pay it up front, but they don't wait till the end either, because you're right that if they were terminated while in the program, then they wouldn't have paid any money. So they pay it throughout.
And they're encouraged to work or do volunteer activities if they can't find a job, and then part of the drug court program is to help them become more employable.
So, I understand something. I think, we were talking about this in our meeting earlier. I think as far as offering jobs to some of these people who are in our drug court, we have a lot of need in town as far as, I think Stephen had told me, there's like 24 positions down right now in public works and things of that nature. So it would be a good idea, to utilize some of that as far as the jobs goes.
In our earlier meeting, Tim made a huge suggestion that has worked well in other localities, and it was, you can tell him, Tim, that programs that you've used work programs that have enhanced their ability to graduate and keep them focused.
Yeah, there are programs, not necessarily drug court, but I was saying, that's something this drug court can think about, where they kind of create their own business. So it could be a catering company or car detailing or construction. And so the individuals that, these were more residential programs of men getting out of prison, but they take the modality of each one teach one, so they're taught a trade, and then people that come through the program learn that trade and they continue working. And that's been really successful, not only in Virginia, but across the nation as far as looking at employment and teaching a trade. And a lot of those individuals go on to start their own companies, and so that's been successful. And something, I'm not aware of a lot of drug courts doing it, but it's something that, if there's opportunities here, it's something you could always shoot for and think about.
Beth, do you have any statistics? I know I've read it in the paper when they just had a graduation, but do you know how many people in those 5 years of Winchester have actually graduated from the drug court? I mean, I know there was an article last summer about it, but I just was curious.
Somebody had the number at our meeting. Who was it? 37%.
37%.
Have graduated?
37% of the participants have been successfully graduated, but the total number of participants, hold on, the Google machine will tell us.
Which actually, if I recall reading the article, that 37% was actually higher than
It
The
is.
national-
the
national
national average of drug court graduate. I mean, as I recall reading the article, they were really kind of touting the fact that 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 drug court had actually had more success than
successes
those
than some
across
of
the
the others.
nation, which I thought was great to read and hear. So
Yeah.
that's good.
State average is about 24%.
Yeah.
Do you know what the national average is?
I do not know what the national average is.
I
State's
do,
about
it's like
24.
24%.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah, so it's
same
the same as
state.
the state?
Yeah, it's on the average. When we were researching this, it was between 21 and 24% is the typical graduate, and the
Yeah.
recidivism rate was,
better than that.
yeah, yeah.
The,
And we're doing
The
well
lack of
because,
recidivism, yeah. We're not-
Winchester,
Yeah.
and Tim explained to us in our meeting before that Winchester is doing so well because of that young lady sitting right there.
You guys are
Ashley.
referencing a meeting before, I guess there's a town-county
There's a
subcommittee.
committee, yeah, there's a
I'm
sub-
unaware of that. Who from the town sits on that? So there's one town and one county? And who else are participants of that? Like, what is it made up of?
All the stakeholders, so
Yeah.
sheriff's department, police.
Police department, the schools send
Commonwealth
representatives.
The school has a representative there?
Yep.
Yes, he
Sure
was here
does.
earlier. just
From
about-
Warren County School Board? or-
Yeah.
No, from the.
It's Bucksmith.
Bucksmith.
He's
Perfect,
assistant
thank you.
superintendent.
Yeah.
Commonwealth attorney.
And the principal of Warren County High School also, Ken Kanesh also participates. We have representatives from Fire and Rescue. Gosh, I'm trying to think of everybody. Of
Yeah,
course,
there's so many.
Sheriff's Department, the.
This is my
police
first time
department.
hearing about it.
That's okay.
Yeah, there's so many.
Steve,
Typically someone from Northwestern.
yeah,
Okay.
Steve comes, Ed's there,
Major.
yeah.
Major's
just-
done a ton of work on the operational piece of this.
Yeah.
Ton of work. Thank you, Major.
Actually, a lot of them are sitting, still sitting in the
Yeah,
middle.
Robbie
Yeah.
comes. People come as their schedule allows, but that, you know, when we first started, we needed to educate ourselves. Then we went on to look at what other localities were doing. We had presentations from the Winchester Court, and we had speakers from Northwestern and different people. So we could look at different things we might try to do, bring to this community to help. Anything else?
I have a question there.
Yeah.
You mentioned it probably in your private meeting that you had earlier, but the people that are participating in this seem to be state people, state charges. Why is the local government footing the bill for it?
Well,
Just curious, why would a local government want to be involved in this when it's a state function? Just curious.
it's not. They're
They're being charged with a state charge. I mean, these aren't town charges. We don't charge anyone on drug charges in town, do we, Chief?
No, they're all state charges, but
Right.
the individual jurisdictions typically stand up their drug courts if that's something that they wish to offer.
So can I answer that for you,
But
Mike?
why wouldn't the state have a drug court? That's basically the question.
I guess
If they're
because
so successful and they save so much money, why aren't we using it?
But people, there isn't a circuit court. I mean, the system, it's a jurisdictional situation. So the circuit court is in Warren, and that's the court that refers people to this program. There isn't a level of state court that hears those cases. We hear them here in circuit court.
We also pay for their incarceration, Mike. So regardless of what they've been charged with, this community pays for the incarceration. So if we can lower the cost of incarceration by helping to create healthy and thriving
Oh, it's
individuals,
not-
then
I agree
then
with
it's
that.
to me it is a benefit to the
But
local.
this- Supreme
Correct
Court
me
of
if I'm wrong.
Virginia.
If a person's charged on a state charge, the local town doesn't pay the incarceration in the state prison.
Well, that goes back to my question about funding and some of the questions I had in that regard.
Ed, you want to answer that?
The state has yet to pick up the cost of the full cost of a state prisoner.
Correct.
Right? The state
Yeah.
pays, right?
The state has yet to pick up the full
Oh.
cost of a state prisoner.
So they do bill the county then for county?
No, the county pays the bill out to the jail,
Right, but that's at the county jail, but I'm talking about in the state prison. If they're in
but
a-
they don't take them all to the state
I-
prison.
They're
They leave
state
them sit out
prisoners,
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Supreme Court of Virginia, who authorizes these courts to operate, does provide funding.
Right.
for courts that are starting up and courts that exist.
Sounds like a great deal. I'm just saying, but someone has to pay for it.
Yeah, anybody's, I mean, there's all good questions, because if you've
Yeah.
thought about it,
Well, and I've seen
everybody
this
else
be
has thought
extremely
about it.
successful across the state. I come from a long line of law enforcement officers, my mother, my father, my sister, and I also come from a family of people with substance abuse, near and dear to my heart. I've dealt with a violent criminal who's a substance abuse person over the last 24 hours here in Warren County, who's a repeat offender for more than I've been alive. So I've seen these stood up across the Commonwealth, I've seen them stood up across the nation, and they've been extremely successful, and I've also seen them be abused for financial purpose and gain.
How so?
The way that they're funded. And so that's why I just had some questions on that, and I have a little bit more research. So I'd be
Okay.
interested to sit in on one of the private meetings or just hear.
They're not
They're not private.
Okay, that's how it was referred to.
Yeah, I just want to make that.
And I
clear.
had never heard of it until tonight, entering in here.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I've never, being on council, heard of it until tonight.
guess.
Nobody, when you come onto council, nobody says, these are our subcommittees and these are who sits on
I've
them.
been talking about it.
So I
for
don't,
years.
I've heard you talk about a drug court.
Yeah.
I've never heard you talk about a subcommittee and who sits on that. And I'm just learning at each meeting what subcommittees exist and who represents us on those. So I'd be very interested to
You're more
listen.
than welcome.
Sure, anytime. I can put you on our email list.
Second Thursday.
Thank you.
Second Thursday of
Second
every
Thursday
month.
of every month.
At 5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock.
Which that goes back to.
Where's that? Is it here?
It's always in the caucus room. Yeah.
More than one person on council or on the board can attend meetings. Only
You
the
just can't
people
talk.
on the committee can participate. The others are there as active listeners with your mouth button. That's the way it is. So there's no reason for anybody to be out of the
No, I
loop
know,
on any of
I've
these.
been invited,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I knew it wasn't, when you, when Mike said private, I thought that too. I thought, okay, that made it sound like it was,
No.
like it was.
It's a subcommittee
like it was a
of each,
secret,
of
which
each
it's not.
And I
locality.
still don't even know what all
I knew
subcommittees
you
exist.
meant, I knew you meant, well, I knew
Yeah.
what you meant.
We are given a list
Yeah, you.
at the beginning of the
and I
year,
haven't
maybe you
been,
guys.
But yeah, you mentioned at the last meeting Thursday night about subcommittees and how they worked, and I learned all new information. So these have been great weekly meetings, despite the time consumption.
I don't know how the town does it, but at the beginning of each year,
That
we
sounds like a
get
good
a
idea.
list
Yeah.
of committees and we choose what we want to be on, and we add to that. We added several in the last couple of years, so
Yeah.
hopefully you have.
Actually, the
more.
drug committee has just been established in this election cycle. So I believe it was established in 2020. Yep, right before the pandemic, we started, I
Like
believe.
April.
Yeah.
No, it was after the pandemic.
Was it
started.
after it
Yeah,
started?
it was,
So,
it was in
yeah.
that fall, because there was a lot of, there were a few, really, well, OD, overdoses that were really distraught in our
Yeah, that's right, it
community
was
that
during the
really
pandemic.
drew everybody's.
It was driven by the need for drug prevention as well as, so it started out, Amber, as a focus on drug prevention. And Gary wanted to try to explore court, and so Beth has navigated us through that.
Well, and the
Process.
pandemic taught us
And
things
family
that
court.
we need to do even more.
And a family court.
And a family
And a
drug
family
court,
drug
right.
court, you know.
Family drug.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's only drug-related
Yeah.
family.
And
court.
there are 4 specific family drug courts in existence in the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia.
So there's only 4 out of 61 that have family drug court involved?
There's 61 adult drug courts, and there's 4 family courts. There's even a DUI court, and some localities are looking at mental health courts and veteran-only courts. So that, they're looking at different attempts to help different groups of people depending on the locality. So if your locality has a huge amount of DUI.
Right, there's not a
issues-
need for each one of those
Yeah.
tailored
So
entities
the
in each
family,
locality.
I know about the family court in Bedford because I knew the director in Bedford. And so that's a little bit different because the people in juvenile and domestic relations court are not charged with a crime. So it has to be a little bit different, but
So does Frederick or Paige have family drug court with theirs?
I can't remember the other 3, I just know about Bedford, but there's
Okay.
not one close. But Judge Funk was very interested in it because, you know, he sees it every day.
Right.
And so, but now that he's moved up to circuit court, Judge Sharp's retiring and Judge Funk's taking his place, so we have an advocate in him for the circuit court. So, but we.
Because I believe part of this is the judge of the circuit court has to really be on board with.
Oh, that completely, they
As
have
I
to be on
recall,
board,
that's
yeah.
how, you have to be really almost kind of,
Yeah.
they kind of have to be, without them. it
Without them,
wasn't
it's
gonna
not gonna
exist,
happen.
yeah.
I can tell you, they were over the top about it.
Judge Sharp had done a drug court in Winchester for a year, so he was really familiar with it, and always on board. And then Judge Funk approached me and said, "What about a family court?" And so we talked about it, and I said, you know, let's do one thing at a time and get that right, and then we can look to expand. So.
Yeah, well, and the more I've sat in on some of the homelessness crisis in Warren County, a lot of that, of mothers and children is related to drug-related offenses.
Oh.
Because they can't live in a home where anybody else is using. And so to not lose their children, they're choosing homelessness.
You're
So
exactly right.
I've been doing a lot of research into the homelessness in Warren County, and it is very hand in hand with drug offenses.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
The majority of the child welfare cases have a drug component or mental serious
Right,
mental
but even
health
if it's
or
not directly related, is what I'm
Right.
learning.
Yes.
So if the mother lives in a house with any family member or friend who is using,
Yeah.
they have to either
Right.
leave or surrender their children. And obviously, maternally, they choose to leave and they choose homelessness over
Yeah.
surrendering their children.
And if they
And
have
there's a
children, they can't
huge
go to our
crisis in
apartments.
Warren County regarding the homelessness in that regard.
Yeah, because with a felony, they can't go to any of the assisted apartments. You can't live there if you have a felony.
Right.
So that's another issue too, because then you're locked out of affordable housing too.
Yeah.
I just sent you an article on the whole Winchester, how it looks like a year by year of what they had to evaluate in order to develop it. So it's under dhp.virginia.gov, so I just sent it to you. It's like 35 pages.
Do you know why it is that only 4 localities have the family drug court?
Like I said, it's procedurally more difficult. The stick, you know, if you're going to go to prison if you don't.
Right.
You don't
4
have
just
that in
seems
family
like-
court
Yeah.
because there's no criminal charges. So the incentive there is getting their children back if they're in foster care.
Okay.
So,
I have to send it to you in a
so,
different way.
you know,
I'll
that's
send it to you
certainly
email.
an option on the table once we get the team in place and
Right.
see how we can expand it. But Nancy Williams is a new
Correct.
juvenile court judge, so, it would be whether she wanted to pursue that or not at this point. Anybody else? Like I said, I'm not the expert, but if you have questions and I don't know the answer, if you'll send me the questions, I
We'll
will
find
certainly
them.
try to find them for you. Yes,
So
ma'am?
where do we go from here? You're presenting this to us, so what do we do with the data? We just go back and analyze, or we get a meeting in, or what's the next step?
And
You both have a budget coming up, and we'll be asking for money for drug court. There's a portion from Valley Health. You go back to her early slide up there. There's a portion in there for Valley Health. There's a portion for Warren County, and there's a portion for the town of Front Royal.
Was the 25% from localities total?
no, that's just that I made the misleading.
Estimated, yeah.
That was just, most grants require a 25% match for the money. So that could come from
It
the
comes
two
from
localities, or it could come
Right.
from,
Yeah.
and a lot of it can be done in kind. So if
If the county or town is providing office space, that could be
Yeah.
considered their match.
Yeah, that was just a generalized 25%.
Right,
is
I
common.
understand.
That's all.
Dr. Daly, I saw that earlier. Is there a set number you're already saying? Is there a set, like you said, Valley Health and town and county, maybe somebody's already told me this, I hope not, and I just can't remember. Was there an amount Valley Health is willing to?
We're gonna find that out tomorrow.
Okay, all right. So I'm not one behind, I'm not tardy to the party. I'm just getting it, right? Okay, all right, gotcha.
But to get started, we need to hire the drug court coordinator, and that would be the most immediate cost. We wouldn't need the rest of that budget because we don't have any participants. But to get the application done, the grants applied for, the training done, all those things that the state of Virginia, the Supreme Court requires for you to have in place before you even apply.
Gotcha.
That's,
So we need them and an office, right?
but we think we've got that covered.
Oh, okay.
And then the advisory committee comes after the coordinator.
The coordinator would start convening the meetings for the advisory committee so that they could start developing the policies and procedures.
How difficult is it to find this coordinator since it's such a small?
Well, they do it, most entities of Winchester did a nationwide search. Valley Health actually employs their drug court coordinators, so they put it out on their system. But the National Association of Drug Court Professionals has a website, and they have a help wanted section where you can advertise positions.
What's the background of these coordinators? What typically where do they come from? You know, like
What's
what
the
are they-
requirements
Yeah,
of
like
somebody
what-
qualified to be a
Right.
drug court coordinator?
I actually have not seen the job listing, what they put in their job posting. The one in Winchester was operating a drug court in Texas, and she came to Winchester from that, so experience.
So it could take a while to find somebody.
It
It's
definitely-
social worker law enforcement.
Yeah.
Like, in most cases.
Yeah.
I was even thinking maybe even too in criminal, like a criminal justice major too.
Correct.
Like, I can see how it would be helpful for them to understand the ins and outs of the court system and probation and all. I mean, really, honestly, they would have to have a lot of knowledge in a lot of areas.
A likely candidate, a probation officer's a
Right,
likely
yeah,
candidate.
yeah.
A social worker's a likely candidate.
You said Frederick County's is employed by Valley Health?
Mhm.
That was a collaboration between
Yeah, there was
Winchester and Frederick County and Clark.
and Valley Health,
Right,
but they were the actual hiring authority.
right.
But they didn't, everybody participated in their, well, actually, when they started their drug court, everybody put in a certain amount of money. I think they said
Well,
60,000.
I'm just asking the questions to get the policies and procedures established for my colleague, Councilman Lloyd, who had to step out. I know, hiring somebody and then setting policies and procedures is an ongoing question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand the process.
But because they've done so much research and have the best practices, you kind of have a go-by
Right.
to work, a structure to work from that's been tested and
Right.
is effective.
We are benefiting by the fact that Frederick County and Winchester have already done this and already have a framework, so we don't have to start from scratch and pay extra to get to a drug court formation.
It's my understanding with the 3 judges that I've talked to about it in the last week that it's as accessible as you want it to be, and that Frederick County mirrors that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lauren Cummings is in charge of the Northern Shenandoah Alliance.
Substance abuse.
Substance
prevention.
abuse prevention, yeah.
It's a long
And
name.
she's been extremely generous with her time to help me get to this point of understanding. I spent the day over there at their court. I attended their staff meeting and I attended their court docket and the meeting with the judge and the whole thing. And it was really helpful just to see it in action. And if anybody is interested, they'd be happy to host you to spend the day with
Yeah, I'd be
their team.
interested. I do know in circuit court here, it was in the presentation, it's a little bit misrepresented. The judge does go through and ask questions, like what are you doing to rehabilitate? Where are you working? I will often go
absolutely.
sit in Warren County Court and hear cases that are open to the public. And our judges do ask those questions even without this. So I think our judges here do have a vested interest in the community and they do try to vet and encourage
I see
these
what you
people
mean.
to not be repeat offenders in that
Yeah.
regard. So I've heard them ask very personal questions to these, people, so.
I just want to say, Councilman Scott Boyd did want me to let the group know he already had another obligation, but he wanted to come here to start the conversation and listen. So,
Tell him we
but
appreciate it.
He asked me
The
that.
time he came,
He-
absolutely. And if he has any questions, tell him to send me an email and I'll get any answers he needs, hopefully. And let me know if you want to,
Yeah,
let Lauren
absolutely.
know. It's because it was really, you know, it's one thing to hear about, it's another thing to watch
See
it in
it,
action.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you can talk to the case manager. I spent a lot of time talking to law enforcement, just get their perspective, because I thought they might be the most skeptical of the group. And they were super interested, excited, invested in the success of the participants, so it was really positive. Okay, anybody else? Thank you so much for spending the time to come and listen to this. It means the world to us that you're interested, that you want to help the community, and like I said, if you have any concerns or questions, please let us know and we will find you your answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.